You all know that crafting and bedazzling is my jam, so I am so excited to make this video for you all. As a recovering hoarder, crafting is therapy to my soul, and every holiday season, I create a new Christmas craft, and this year, it's going to be the Grinch Nutcracker. And I already have a lot of crafting supplies on hand, like these Christmas jemmies that we're going to use, and some of the paint. Now, I did go to Hobby Lobby to get this green because I didn't have that shade of green, and also to purchase the wooden Nutcracker that we're going to paint today. I also have my hot glue gun ready and a Sharpie and paintbrushes. Now, I am a type of artist who kind of creates as she goes. So you'll see by the end of this video that I will add more things to it. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this nose off because I don't want my Grinch face to have a nose. Now, hubby actually popped it off for me off camera, but it is actually really easy to pull off. Next, I'm just going to use my X-Acto knife just to pull up some of this wood glue that was left behind. That way, his face is nice and smooth for when we start painting. Next, I'm going to start painting, and I'm using that Grinchy green color to start painting in his face. And all the paint that I'm using in this video is the acrylic paint by Folk Art, but you can go to any Hobby Lobby, Michael's, any craft store to buy any type of brand of this acrylic craft paint. I find that it works best in this project. Next, I'm going to be painting his hands that green too. And it is a little tricky where he's holding his staff. So just take your time and maybe even use a smaller paintbrush to get into all those creases. Now we're going to move on to his legs. I want to have both of his legs above his boots to be that Grinchy green color too. Lastly, I'm going to paint the inside of his mouth where the Nutcracker is that green as well. Next, we're going to use our red paint, and I'm actually going to paint his coat that bright Christmassy red because I know it's really going to pop against that green. If you have a slip of the hand, like I did when I painted outside the lines on his shoulders, it's quite okay. Once the paint dries, you can always color over it with the new color paint. You might have to do 2 coats, but it's okay. You can fix it. I'm also making sure that I'm painting all these little odd areas because I really don't want any of the original wood showing in our Nutcracker. Next, I'm also going to paint the top of his crown this red color. Again, I think it's really going to make it pop. And lastly, I decided to paint the base red as well because I wanted the color to be evenly spread out by having the top of the hat red, his coat red, and now the base. Now let's move on to the metallic paints I have because I have this bright gold metallic paint and I have this champagne color one. And I think for the top of the crown, it would be best to use that bright gold color. And continuing with that gold metallic paint, we're going to get the tops of his shoulders. We're going to get the bottom of his sleeves. We're also going to get his belt and all the accents like the top of his boots because we're using the gold as a neutral to connect the red and the green together. Now I'm gonna grab this metallic champagne color because I think it's gonna look really nice as the collar for his coat. Now for the top of the crown, I will be putting little jewels here, but I wanted to have the green as a base color underneath of it. And lastly, it's time to use the black to paint his boots, because black is also going to be a nice neutral grounding color to connect the bright colors so it's not overwhelming. All right, so the main painting is done, and once this dries the first time, this is where you're going to go back and paint over any of the little mistakes that you painted outside of your lines. Now I'm going to lightly sketch the Grinch's face on. Now I emphasize lightly because even if you erase it, you still can kind of see the pencil marks. And I was also kind of laughing at myself because I had the camera on the wrong angle and my hand was covering my sketching. And I thought it was funny because I'm normally a decluttering channel, so I know those angles, but I'm still learning. And I really want to post more DIY craft videos more often. The next step is to take your Sharpie marker and outline those pencil marks so you can really see his face pop. And I feel like when I added the fur on the side to give the outline of his face, it really made him look like the Grinch. Now we have to do some final touches with the paint. So what I'm doing is I'm using that bright yellow to paint in his eyes. And I'm also gonna go over that green because there was a little bit of a pencil mark that I couldn't get up. So I'm just going to touch up his face with this green paint so that it looks good. I also grabbed that gold metallic paint because I wanted to add the boot straps that you see on most of the Nutcrackers. Now, this is where I'm going to start adding supplies and kind of create as I go because I had already had this gold trim and I thought, oh, this is going to look awesome on his shoulders to really give him that Nutcracker aesthetic. And that's what I love about crafting and art. You can add as you go along. You can add your own touches. This is my Grinch Nutcracker, but I bet you someone else is going to make one and it might have a blue coat. It might have different accents, and it's gonna look absolutely gorgeous when they're done too. And in my heart, that's my favorite part, is seeing the different variations and creativity that everybody has. Since the yellow paint on his face is now dry, I'm going to take my Sharpie and just define his eyes a little more. Now here comes my favorite part, when we get to start hot gluing the jemmies on. And of course, I'm going to start with his crown. And you can have as many jemmies as you want. You can create patterns, or maybe you want your Grinchy to be a little more minimalistic and maybe he doesn't have as many jemmies as maybe I'm going to put on. And I also had this plaid ribbon. I thought, ooh, this will be perfect for the base of our Nutcracker. So I hot glued it on, and I really am loving how it's giving an extra pop of color. I did not have this furry ribbon on hand. I did have to buy it from Joann's, but I was just so in love with this idea because the Grinch is furry. He has fur, and I wanted to add a little fur onto him. So I really had to cut down a piece of that fur because I wanted it right where the bottom of his mouth was. That way it also kind of covers that hole in his chest. Now I thought I was done, but then I realized he was missing something. And what he was missing were those straps that go across the coat. So technically, I should have done this before I glued the fur. But luckily, you're all watching a DIY video, so you can actually see the correct order that it's supposed to go in. And finally, I added some more jemmies on the ends of those straps. Again, just giving it that extra pizzazz. And now my finished Grinch is complete. And I love how he came out. He came out so cute. And there's so many variations that we can create just from this Nutcracker. And it's going to make such an amazing gift or an addition to your holiday decor. And I really hope that this video inspired you to create your own Grinchy Nutcracker too.